So, welcome to everyone. In this section, we will discuss user authentication strategies and types of authentication protocols and organization unit, group policy, types of group policy settings. So, first of all, we will discuss user authentication strategy. So, define our user authentication strategies. So, user authentication or verification is a process that lets a device to authenticate the recognize somebody who links to a network resource. So authentication is nothing but it is a verification that recognize as somebody is an authenticated person to access a particular network resource in a network. So in simple terms, the user authentication is a process of human to machine transfer of credentials necessary for confirmation of a user authenticity. So if any user is logging into any accounts or into network devices, so that login credentials is a necessary information needed to for confirmation of a user authenticity. To authenticate the user, the login credentials are needed. So to provide a network resource in a network, this authentication strategy is the main key role, and the user authentication happens on both a wired and wireless networks. This authentication is happens on different types of networks. So you can see an example here to log in to access any resource. Then we need a login credentials, that is nothing but a usernames and passwords. So today we have different types of user authentications are there, like one-time passwords, text captures. So like this text captures and image captures. So to check image captures and number captures to output to write the output for logical expressions or logical questions, and face recognition, thumb impressions, or eye retina scans, or many other methods. So in nowadays there are different types of authentication strategies are used to access the resources in a network. So here the purpose of authentication strategy. So what is the purpose for this authentication strategy is authentication is used to verify that you are or who you say you are. So identify the user. To identify the user, this authentication is used. After a user's identity is confirmed, the user identity is confirmed, then for instance with the username and passwords. So the user identity is confirmed with the help of a username and passwords. That identity may be used in an authorization policy to determine the appropriate access privileges. So with the help of that usernames and passwords, so that will determine the authorization policy. For example, a user login into an account, so that will be having a proper access privileges for that users. If a user login it as an admin, so that will be provide a different access privileges that will be provided for admins. And organizations today must ensure that the right users are give access to the right resources. So in many organizations, these authorization or these identities or checking must ensure to right users to give an access for the resources, that is a physical or it is a digital. So any resources that will be available to the users based on the authentication strategies. So here the user is logged in with username and password, and that will confirm a user. So these kind of login credentials will leads to authorize the user and provide a particular access privileges to the users. So what are the types of authentications are there in nowadays? So first one is two-factor authentication. So two-factor authentication is nothing but it combines a username and passwords or a PIN with a physical or mobile token for extra security. So this is the like a usernames, passwords, and as well as a mobile token to send to the mobile to approve that. Then only that will be accessible. This can be happens in Gmail also. It is having username and password. After that, it will be sent a token for an extra security that will be sent to mobile. So when we confirm that token, then only whenever we are approving that, then only it will be accessible. That is a two-factor authentication. And three-factor authentication, it is along with a two-factor authentication, like two-factor authentication plus it is having extra as a biometric such as fingerprints to verify the user identity. So it is having usernames or passwords or pin or that extra mobile token for extra security, and then it is having a fingerprint verification. So this is nothing but a three-factor authentication. And four-factor or multi-factor authentication along with these two, it involves a knowledge or possession or inherence or location. So that is added an extra as a knowledge to ask some question or to ask some logical question. So this is an extra security in four-factor authentication or multi-factor authentications. Nowadays, location also used in authentications. So these are the types of authentications are existed nowadays. So here there are the types of different types of authentication protocols used with a different need in a network. So there are several different authentications protocols for network access control. So in networks, in computer networks, so to access network access control, to get a network access control, so here there are different types of protocols are used. So for example, Kerberos and extensible authentication protocol and IEEE 802.1x and remote authentication dial-in user service radius and terminal access control system TACAX. So these are the types of protocols used in network access controls. That is nothing but the user can log in into a server. First he needs to verify his key, that is a public key or private key. It will generate one key. After that one token will be generated. So after granting the permission, by verifying, by approving that token, then only the service will be sent to the server and the server can be available to the user. So this is one example for a Kerberos protocol. So in network access control, these are the types of authentication protocols used to access a network resources or to get an access control of a network devices. So these are the types of protocols used. And next, OU structure. OU stands for organizational unit. So this is OU organizational unit is existed in Active Directories. So it is organizational unit is a subdivision in Active Directory. So the Active Directory is created for a particular domain. So that subdivision of that Active Directory is called as organization unit. So which we can place our users, groups, or computers, or other organizational unit. So it is a subdivision of Active Directory. And using organizational units, we can create containers within a domain that represents a hierarchical logical structure within the organization. So, for example, you can see here that Active Directory is created for this domain. So that domain contains users as a organization unit. So that can contain marketing users or IT users and research users. So it is a groups. So this is a logical structure or a hierarchical structure within the organization that is created. This is called as an organizational unit. One organization having a users or groups or computers or organizational units are dividing into subdivisions that provide a hierarchical or logical structure is called as organizational unit. This is an organizational unit. We can manage the configuration and use of accounts and resources based on the organizational model. So we can configure this organizational unit based on the organization model and the tasks of organizational unit. So here the functions which are done with the help of this organization unit is to manage the users, create the users or deleting the users, and managing groups. So group of accounts or group of users we can create, managing the groups and modifying the group memberships. You can also modify the group memberships and managing group policy links, and you can manage the group policy links, resetting the passwords and user accounts. So you can create the user accounts and you can manage the groups and membership of groups and policy links of a group, and also we can reset the passwords of our user accounts that are existed in an Active Directory. So Active Directory contain a different types of users. So that users are divided into subdivisions, that is done with the help of organization unit. Dividing an organization into subdivisions. So here the benefits of organization structure. So organization units can be nested to support different hierarchical levels. Each domain in the Active Directory environment can have its own OS structure. So here in every organization structure that is created in Active Directory, so that can have a hierarchy levels like users or groups or organization, different sub organizations or organization units, and one domain's organization unit structure is independent of another domain's organization unit structure. So if we created an organization unit structure for a domain, so that is independent organization unit from other organization units. So it is different. It is independent from other. So it is fairly simple to change a OU structure. We can also modify the organization unit structure, and organization structures are much more flexible than domain structures because we can move the users, we can manage the users, we can change the users into another organization unit. So it is flexible than our domain structures. And benefits of organization. So object in child organization unit can inherit organization unit configuration settings. For example, an organization unit is created. So here it is having another organization unit. So this child organization unit will get the configuration settings from the root organization. That is nothing but objects in child organization units can inherit OU configuration settings. So these childs automatically getting the configuration settings of a root directory or root organization unit. So group policy settings can also be applied to organization. So whatever the group policy settings created for a domain, that can be applied to the child organization units automatically. So users can delegate administrative control of Active Directory objects through organization units. So the users can get the administrative controls with the help of these Active Directory objects through organization units. So next, user environment. So a user environment is a set of distributed objects that collectively or completely characterize the activity of a user in a universal system. So here a user environment is nothing but the user details or user profiles or user location and user activity. So whatever the activities is doing in a server, so that each details will be collected and activity also collected. So it is a set of distributed objects that collectively characterize the activity of a user in a system. So with the help of this user environment, we can collect the user activity and we can observe the user activities. So a user environment is then an abstraction that captures the essence of a user in a universal system, and this user environment consists of environment identification, each user environment having environment identification and user profiles and user location and user activity. So here this user environment is consist of these four essential things. So next, a group policy. So group policies are computer or user settings that can be defined to control or secure the Windows Server and client infrastructure. So actually we created organization units and we can create a users, different types of users. So the users, what are the users which are created in organization units? The users will get the authentication configurations or administrator configuration control from the policy settings. That policy settings will be comes to the organization unit users with the help of a inheritance, like the domain configuration settings. The domain configurations will be automatically inherited to the child. So the child or users will have a control access of the domain or server. So here there are group policy settings or policies are there. The policies are nothing but a settings, user settings that can be defined to control or secure a Windows server and client infrastructure. So these group policies are used to secure or to control the Windows server and as well as that infrastructure. So there are two components in group policy. So one is a group policy object and another one is a group policy settings. One is group policy object and group policy object policy settings. So first we will discuss group policy settings. So group policy object policy settings are the real settings with group policy object. that defines a particular action. So for example, you can see here this is a user profile and this is a site and here the domain. So here it is a organization unit. So here these users GPO objects, these are the object. So here this object will have a particular group policy settings and this object having a group policy settings, and here the users are having group policy settings here, and here also we are having group policy settings. So here a particular group policy object that define a particular action, that is nothing but each group policy object contain a separate group policy settings. So group policy settings comes from group policy object templates. So here this is a group policy object template. So the settings will be comes from group policy set GPO templates. So that can be stored in sys value folder. That group policy settings are stored in sys value folder of each domain controller. So here for each domain controller, here this domain having organization unit. This domain can be controlled by different organization subunits. So that group policy objects policy settings will be stored in SYS value folder in each domain controller. So if here we are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are having 4 domain controllers here, 4 domain controllers. So each domain controller will having a separate folder SYS value, sys value folder. So here this policy settings will be stored in that location. And next, after creating a group policy, it can be linked to sites. So first the group policy will be created and that can be linked to sites. The group policy is linked to sites, then domains, and then organization units. So here group policy is processed in the order of LSDOU. So this is nothing but the order of process this group policy settings in this order only. First it should be give to local group, first that central group, after that it is to give to site, and then domains, then organization units, then sub-organization units. So the group policy settings will be processed in the order of LSDOU. L is nothing but list of local groups, or S is nothing but sites, D is domain, and O is organization unit. So this is the order to process the group policy settings. And types of group policy settings. So in fresh domain controller, there are two default group policy settings configured. So in GPU objects, you can see here there are two default group policy settings configured for each domain. So here this is a domain. Here this is a domain. So for this domain, we are having a group policy objects. So by default, it is having two group policy settings. One is default domain control policy and another one is default domain policy. So every domain by default it contains two default group policy settings. And first one is default domain policy. So this is default domain policy. So this policy is linked to the entire domain. This policy will be linked to entire domain, like passwords policies or account lockout policies and Kerberos protocol policies. So here this is a passwords and this is account lockout policies, and this Kerberos protocol policies is used to access the domain. So this is created, and it is recommended that not to edit this policy. Once it is created, it is not able to edit this policy. And if you want to link a new group policy, then create a new GPO. So for example, if you want to add a new group policy, so you have to create a new group policy object. That is nothing but you have to add a new GPO. If you want to add another group policy settings, then you have to add another GPO. Then you can configure this default domain control policy or default domain policy. If you want to add another one, you have to create a new group policy object that is linked to this domain. And next, default domain controller policy. So this policy setting is applied to domain controllers. So this policy is applicable to only domain controllers only. But in before here, this default domain policy is applied for entire domain. But here this default domain controller policy is applied for only domain and domain controller that is existed in the domain controller. So here default domain controller policy is for only domain controllers. So this policy setting is applied to domain controllers and is linked to domain controllers only. It is linked to domain controllers organization unit. So here organization unit is IT department. So here domain controllers as well as IT department organization unit. This policy affects a domain controllers only. So this policy is only affects domain controllers only. So you can see here default domain policy and default domain controller policy. So this is for only default controllers as well as that can be applicable for this IT management also. You can see here these two are in location of domain controllers. But a default domain policy is it is a central domain here this one. The local. The local. These two are in domain controllers. So thanks for watching.